also. Architecture of respect. So we'll be moving back and forth between form and essence. Form and essence. To repeat something that has been a central theme of all of this, Vila Dave's teachings in Canto 3, Chapter 29. Again and again, 4 times emphasizing one can behave correctly in this world only if one remembers that God is in the heart of every living being. It's a nice principle, and it's true. Without this remembrance, our interactions are fundamentally flawed. Fundamentally flawed means we mistake who we are and we mistake who they are and try to have a relationship. So that's a flawed platform. And one of the ways of describing is the mood or bhava of material desire. Now, kama can specifically mean lust, like male-female lust, but kama in a broader sense just means desire, desire to be the enjoyer. Our identification with the body creates a naive belief. What's that? This whole world revolves around me. And when looking at that view of life through the lens of desire, others, other things, or other people, their resources meant for my enjoyment. If I'm not enjoying, then I have a problem, or I think they have a problem. So here we go. One day after Srila Prabhupada's lecture, a man raised his hand and asked, "Why did God create this world?" I paraphrased this, so now here it is directly. So this is like, Prabhupada's lectures were transcribed. So at the end of a lecture, Prabhupada's answer, God created this world for enjoyment. And the person that heard that message, they were like really happy. And then Prabhupada clarified, not yours, but his. Nice answer. So what is the real purpose of the world? So that's one nice answer. However, we look at the world and naturally think, I am at the center, so I must enjoy. So, one way to describing, we tear it off from the source and forget about God, whereas the world was created in order to remind us of God, the majesty of God, the mightiness of God, the opulence of God, like the opulence of the Absolute chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now, a cultured person feels pain when they see others in pain. They feel happiness when they see others in happiness. That's culture. True culture exists only to the extent that it helps us manifest our true nature. That's who we are, soul and servants of God. Nice photo, isn't it? Real small guy in a big scene, mountains, and he's up above the clouds. Hmm. True culture, again, it's an environment for the soul to thrive. The soul by nature is pure, unencumbered, uncovered, without material coverings. The soul is pure. A real culture is a culture of love and respect. When we let others go ahead and constantly humble our false ego, that allows us to manifest our true nature and feel ourselves as who we are, soul. and feel the presence of God. That's culture. And to feel the reality of his existence, not just the theory that he exists somewhere, busy doing God knows what, pun intended. And there's another circumstance of life in which the heart is not open like that. The heart is closed, more locked. So there's the healthy position and the unhealthy position. The unhealthy position is like having a locked heart. When we experience disrespect within ill-formed relationships, so the door of our heart becomes closed. We discussed all of these points little by little. The sense of loneliness, the sense of isolation, being afraid to express ourselves and to wholeheartedly give, the heart's locked. But that's not human life. It's not our natural life. It's not our healthy life. Therefore, it's important to follow Vedic rules and principles of etiquette in order to show or to help each other manifest ourselves and eventually to realize one's spiritual nature. A nice understanding is Prabhupada had the lovely task of transporting Vedic culture into the modern world, the Western world, the culture of no culture. One way to describe the Western world. So culture has sufficiently lost, substantially lost. But one principle that he maintained is pictured here. He gave instructions. We're going to give some examples of Prabhupada giving explicit instructions of offering respect, offering obeisances. What can be more strange or wild for people in modern society than bowing down to each other's feet? Too much. But he had us do it. Why? Because rule brings us closer to the essence of who we really are, which is true. And it's a very practical approach. Very, very practical. Now, the topic of form and essence. This is a potter's wheel. So taking a glob of clay that's soft and giving it form by the skill of the potter making the pot, and then firing the pot so it becomes hard, and then having a clay pot. Form reproduces the essence. So in the beginning, some devotees were bowing down, other devotees didn't bow down. They greeted each other or something, and they didn't bow down. So one day Brahmananda asked Prabhupada, he didn't really want to bow down. And what do I do when I don't feel like bowing down? I don't have this feeling that I need to bow, and I don't want to. Very explicit. So Prabhupada said, bow down anyway. In due time, you will feel. You will understand. So from conditioned, artificial independence kind of a mood, and then a different mood, the mood of a natural feeling that comes from a healthy condition. Rules help when we just accept some form. It helps. It helps. It helps us get closer to the essence. But the form on its own is not sufficient. So sometimes people have this, the nice diagram. There's the rule, laws given by God. That's how Prabhupada described religion. Religion is following the laws. A religious person recognizes God, recognizes the laws of God, and they follow the laws of God. That's a religious person. Then there's another type of person. They don't follow laws. They're lawbreakers, and they're not in the category of a religious person. So then there's the essence. The essence is that the heart over there on the right side. Humans constantly struggle back and forth between rules or rituals and essence, or the feeling and the purpose. So, which is more important? And some say rules, and some say essence. And what's correct is we need both because both are there. The goal, we can say the goal of the rule is to come to the stage where the heart feels. But if the heart doesn't feel, what do you do about the rules? The form, as opposed to the essence. Too much form has a problem. They're focused on the rules and they forget the purpose. And that leads to karmic or ritualistic kind of lifestyle. And Christianity, one of the explanations of Christianity, it was a revolt against Judaism, because Judaism has very strict rules, this and that and the other. And some were objecting to the strictness of the rules. Pharisees and scribes had dried up hearts because they worshiped the law rather than the spirit. Form without essence is a corpse. It has shape of life, but no breath, no pumping heart inside, no life. Then the other is also there. You disregard form, it's like a ghost. Life without form. Disregarding the rules to focus only on spirit leads to jnana or Mayavad philosophy, an attempt to blur distinctions. This is a flaw. Essence without specific shape is just vague. It leads to the idea that everything is the same and nothing matters. Essence with no form. Essence without form is a ghost. It has spirit, but no vehicle to interact with the world. So therefore, ghosts sometimes haunt because they want to occupy another body because they're frustrated without a form to act through. So both are needed. Bhakti is a synthesis of both these two. There's a link between these two. Why is there a link between these two? Because there's no difference between Krishna's form and Krishna's essence. Would you agree with that? You sure? Okay. Can you think of an example where the form and the essence, the Krishna's form and Krishna's essence are the same? Here's three. Krishna's name and Krishna, they're non-different. Krishna's deity form and Krishna, non-different. The words of Krishna and Krishna himself, non-different. So there's a non-difference relationship between the form and essence. Here's Prabhupada speaking. Anyone who states that one should worship not Krishna, but the underlying impersonal within Krishna is a Mayavadi. Krishna has form. He wears a peacock feather. He has yellow dhoti, pitambar, and he carries a flute in his hand, and he has their specific ness to Krishna's existence. There's an essence of his existence, and there's a specific form to his existence. While some struggle with this specificity, preferring a vague God, the truth is specific. because the divine has form. We can use the form or rules and worship to reach the essence. The essence, one can say, the essence is love of God, which is true. But there's something that can help us access that essence or love of God. So here's another little diagram. There's a bridge, the bridge of bhakti. And on one side, there's too much attachment to rules. On the other side, there's neglect of rules. It's a nice way to graphically illustrate the same message. So in between, there's a big cavern. Watch out. But there's one space at the top where there's rules, and then the other one where there's the essence, and it's a nice bridge. Don't go to either extreme. Avoid it. Clinging to rules while forgetting their purpose is niyamagraha. There's from Rupa Goswami's teachings, the nectar of instruction. There are principles that are detrimental to bhakti. They're principles that enhance bhakti. Utsahan nischayat dharyat tat karma pavartanat. That verse is describing those principles that enhance bhakti. And then there's principles that destroy or detrimental to bhakti. And it's too much focusing on rules while forgetting the purpose of those rules. That's detrimental to bhakti. Or you can say it destroys bhakti. Then there's the same word. There's niyama agraha and there's niyama agraha. Where there's agraha is neglecting the rules in favor of spontaneous devotional service. So we don't go too much attached to or too much detached from. That's specific to rules. We need both. The disciple or the discipline of form has the capacity to unlock the freedom of the essence. It's a nice way of describing this balance of the two. So now it's storybook time. This is Mahabharat story. And I narrated it a little bit, but this is now narration plus graphics. It's really nice. So there's the battle, and there we see Krishna in the center, and there's Arjuna and the chariot behind Krishna. And Krishna teaches a correct etiquette, both to Yudhisthira and to Arjuna when there's a conflict between Yudhisthira and Arjuna. But there's normally not a conflict between Yudhisthira and Arjuna. And the reason is there's the senior, and he's very humble. We heard about the humility of Yudhisthira, so humble that he couldn't find anyone in his kingdom that was lesser than him. Everyone is greater than him. The emblem of humility. So he is a leader with humility and skill, and understanding the principles of Dharma. After all, he's the son of Yamaraj or Dharmaraj. So he is an emblem of nice Dharma. So he's a qualified leader in all respects. And Arjuna looked up to him always. Whatever his elder brother said, that was it. And he was an instrument of Krishna, but he was also an instrument of his elder brother. They had the right kind of dynamic going on. And then at the same time, Yudhisthira had great respect for the power of Arjuna. I mean, there's many nice things, but one of those many nice things was when it looked like the war was coming, Yudhisthira turned to Arjuna and said, Yudhisthira turned to Arjuna and said, we all know at the time of your birth, there was this astrological forecast that you would become a great hero, a great fighter, that you would receive celestial weapons. So can you go get those celestial weapons now? We're going to need those celestial weapons. I wasn't quite like that casual, but so he went, and this thing, that thing, the other thing happened, and he came back with this big stack of celestial weapons. And those celestial weapons were going to be needed for the war. And sure enough, they were needed for the war. So Arjuna, was the order carrier of his elder brother. And his elder brother had all the qualifications and respect for his younger brother, who was necessary element in the battle that was about to come. When a person has real mastery of culture, then situations may arise, but culture can correct the out of balance situations of life. And Krishna was expert at it, and we're going to hear how he did what he did. So, Karna was the first of Kunti's sons. And just before the battle was to begin, Kunti decided the time has come to inform Karna, you're my number one son. Not Yudhishthira was my number one son, you. Kunti revealed to Karna that he was her firstborn and urged him to fight alongside his brothers. Respectfully, he said, no. Where were you, O noble woman, all this time, when people reviled me, when they pointed fingers at me, when they laughed at me, saying I was just a son of a charioteer? Where were you then? Why were you silent then? Duryodhana lifted me out of the mud. He lifted me up and made me a Kshatriya. I will never betray Duryodhana. But I promise you that you will always have 5 sons left alive, meaning he was going to kill Arjuna. That was the spirit of Karna. I will not kill anyone other than Arjuna because only he is on the same level as me. Either I will kill him or he will kill me. In any case, you will remain with 5 sons, her plus the other 4 Pandavas, with Arjuna dead. So I have nothing to grieve about. I promise you that. So his promising his mother he won't kill Arjuna. Well, that changed. During the battle, we had a nice discussion this morning at 6:30 a.m. with the Chinese devotees about the demise of Grandfather Bhishma on day number 10. So after he was gone, they needed a commander-in-chief. Duryodhana selected his good buddy, Karna. So Karna became the commander of the Kauruva army. He began to fight and wanted to prove that he could defeat any of the Pandava brothers. Quickly, he defeated Nakula and Sahadev. He even defeated Bhima in battle so thoroughly that Bhima fled in horror from him. In the end, Karna challenged Yudhisthira to a duel and completely defeated him. He wounded his body and laughed at him, and finally destroyed even his chariot and horses. So there's a nice depiction of Yudhisthira wounded, the chariot smashed. When it was clear to everyone that Yudhisthira was defeated, Karna said, well, okay, I will not kill you. Live, let it be. Because he made this promise to his mother. There'll still be 5 Pandavas at the end of the war. But then he started turning his attention to Arjuna. But meanwhile, Yudhisthira's chariot driver The chariot was smashed, but the chariot driver was still there, and he managed to put him on another chariot and took him away from the battlefield. And there were uh, doctors or brahmanas that knew medicinal herbs and applied the medicinal herbs to his wounds. Heavily bleeding, Yudhishthira. More than physical pain, it was pain of humiliation and defeat. Arjuna was far away at that time, fighting somewhere on the other end of the vast battlefield. When he returned and didn't see his brother, of course, there was some exchange with Krishna, and Krishna said, "Let's go see our Yudhishthira because he's wounded." Without thinking twice, he rushed to find out what had happened to Yudhishthira, where he was and how he was. Mm-hmm. So there's Yudhishthira looking up at Arjuna, and Yudhishthira is in bewilderment. When Arjuna, after some time, entered the tent where Yudhishthira was lying bleeding, Yudhishthira thought, "Great, he's come to tell me that he has killed Karna. He has avenged me and my dishonor, my defeat. He has come to cheer me up with news that Karna is dead." And so he asked the question specifically, "Is Karna now dead? Is that the message you've come to bring?" And Arjuna was very surprised. "Karna, I didn't think about Karna. I thought about you. I came to visit you. It was important for me to find out what state you're in now." And hearing that, because Yudhishthira had an expectation that Arjuna, he knew this dynamic was going on, this battle between Arjuna and Karna, and surely Arjuna would be victorious. So he started speaking insulting words to Arjuna, like nasty words. It's like, we discussed this, remember? Out of character kind of speech. So he reminded Arjuna that during their incognito period, Arjuna took the role of a eunuch. He said, "Now you're still a eunuch. You're not a man, and you're a coward, and you've gone from the battlefield, and aren't you? Admit that you're afraid of Karna. That's why you haven't defeated him, and just give your Gandiva bow to someone who's a real warrior." Like insulting words, out of character kinds of words. Arjuna's reaction, he reached for his sword and was going to chop Yudhishthira. How would you feel in the place of Arjuna? Arjuna felt anger, pain, and deep resentment. He stormed out and grabbed his sword. Krishna stopped him. "Arjuna, where are you going?" "I will kill Yudhishthira. I made a vow. According to my vow, I must kill anyone on the spot who tells me to give away my Gandiva bow or claims that I am unworthy of it. I must fulfill my vow, and then I'll have to kill myself." Yudhishthira's behavior was rash and impetuous. Arjuna's contemplation was similarly rash and impetuous. So Krishna had to step in and resolve this. Krishna put his hand on Arjuna's hand and said, "What benefit is there if you now fulfill your vow, and in doing so, you kill yourself and your elder brother? What good is that going to do for Dharma?" Up here is Dharma. Not you got your emotion, okay. You made a vow, okay. But what about Dharma? So then Krishna, long narration, right in Mahabharata at a very timely time, Krishna says a lot of things about what is Dharma. The meaning of Dharma is not to harm any living entity. Ultimately, that is our goal. The meaning of Dharma is to awaken love for Krishna. But he didn't say love for Krishna. The goal is the love for Krishna. And since Krishna is everywhere, that means we have to find love for everything else. This is the theme. And, this microphone stand needs to go to a doctor. And just live with it. Just keep sagging. Huh? You just bought a new one. Send it back to the doctor. It's okay. I'll live. I'll just so lesson in Dharma, because that's the scene. We have to find love for everything else. Since Krishna is everything, means we have to find love for everything else. You are a warrior. You must fight and kill, but there's a vast difference between fighting for a just cause and out of a sense of duty and fighting merely to protect your wounded pride. If you kill someone in defense of your wounded self-esteem, then you're violating Dharma instead of upholding Dharma. So, what happens when you commit suicide? You suffer and others will suffer. The meaning of Dharma is not to harm any living entity. So he's giving him nice lessons. You made a vow and you don't want to break your vow. That lie which protects you from breaking Dharma is the truth. That's similar to what he said to Yudhisthira. Tell Ashvatthama is dead. Because that lie which protects life is Dharma. In order to uphold the highest Dharma, one must lie, and that lie becomes the real truth. So, conclusion, consider carefully. You will understand what you need to do by considering carefully. You should never kill Yudhisthira. On the other hand, you will need to keep your vow. Fulfill your vow. It's very simple. Everything is simple. Go to Yudhisthira and scold him. When a younger person speaks disrespectfully to an elder, the elder dies in his heart. So that's what happened. He went to Yudhisthira, following Krishna's instruction. We mentioned this already. He went to Yudhisthira and started scolding Yudhisthira. And that words of a junior disrespecting a senior is a very, very serious offense. Very serious offense. And the impact upon the senior can be, if the senior is really a sensitive person, then it's like killing them. We will kill him in our heart, and that's death for a senior. So Krishna continued, if you must kill Yudhisthira, then for goodness sake, kill him with cruel words. Then fall at his feet and ask for forgiveness. Sincerely repent, and he will forgive you. Everything will be fine again. The scriptures say so. So he did a good job of insulting his brother. Yudhisthira, you're actually a coward. You're a complete coward. Because of you, we lived 13 years in the forest, and every day in those 13 years, we remembered how you played the dice game, and because of your weakness, our wife was publicly dishonored before our eyes. You don't even know who you are. You're unfit to be a monarch. You have no qualities for this role. If you compare yourself with Bhima, it would be better to give the throne to Bhima. He is much more worthy. He's a real man. The whole war is because of you, and still you dare to scold me. So he did what Krishna said, and then he had to think about what he just did. He felt terrible. And he never spoke to Yudhisthira like that. He never. It's out of character for Arjuna to do like that. Yudhisthira spoke out of character. Arjuna spoke out of character, and now he's going to lament. He felt dirty, crumpled inside, soiled by something foul. Even if we, in general, who are accustomed to many things, that's us, not Arjuna, we scold someone, we feel contaminated if we're not totally desensitized. And there's a bad feeling, at least there should be. And commonly there is. Very bad sensation. Arjuna had never allowed himself to even think, ill of his elder brother. He strictly followed all orders of his superiors. For him, Yudhisthira was the representative of God, the real bearer of Vedic culture. His seniority was indisputable. He could never think badly of him, especially since Yudhisthira was adorned with all wonderful qualities. Now Arjuna is a wreck and considering suicide. Arjuna felt so bad that he again grabbed his sword. He wanted to kill himself. Krishna asked, "What are you doing?" "I want to kill myself. How can I live after this?" Krishna instructed him again. "Who will feel good about your dying? Will you feel good about this? You will kill yourself and deprive the Pandavas of any hope of victory? Why are you doing something so foolish again? Have you forgotten what the Shastras say?" Impetuous. "If you want to kill yourself, praise yourself before a senior. Just as when a younger scolds the elder, he kills the elder. Likewise, when a junior praises himself before a senior, he commits suicide. So go and do that if you want to destroy yourself." So he did what Krishna said. He came to Yudhisthira and began to praise himself. "I will win over everyone with my Gandiva bow," and blah, 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 blah. When he said all this, he felt even worse. So much worse and disgusted that he fell at Yudhisthira's feet and begged for forgiveness. "Please forgive me. I'm the biggest fool. I wanted to kill you, and I insulted you." And then he said something very important. "Dear king, in fact, my whole life belongs to you. I have no life of my own. Forgive me for my stupidity. I promise you, I will kill Karna today," because that's what he wanted. He knew that's what the master, the senior person wanted. This enigma, this terrible person, this boastful, vicious Karna should be destroyed. So sometimes apologizing, apology is nice, but it's insufficient. That's the message here. We believe that a tearful apology will end the matter. However, the person that's been wounded by harsh words or harsh behavior, it doesn't go away so just by saying, "Gee, I'm sorry." Think nothing of it. A subtle trace of the offense remains in the offender's heart, not the offended and the offender. Sincere tears alone do not wash away the root tendency to offend. Here's an example. Daksha. Daksha offended Lord Shiva, and as a result, he lost his head, literally. And when everyone complained, "Oh, Daksha's dead, so then I can bring him back to life." No, you killed him. So he gave him a goat's head. You know the story. You know the story? Yeah, I'm sure you do. Daksha offended Lord Shiva and was punished by being given the head of a goat. Despite being a figure formerly attractive to women, because Daksha was a ladies' man, it was very beautiful. He became the source of horror. Daksha sincerely regretted his mistake. He apologized from the depths of his heart, and Lord Shiva, embodiment of compassion, sincerely forgave him. Yet, despite this genuine exchange, the seed of offense, the root of offense, was still there. Jiva Goswami writes about this specifically in the chanting of the holy name. If we offend someone, whoever that someone might be, particularly a devotee or Krishna or the holy name, it's not enough to simply ask for forgiveness. Since sincerely, even sincerely, although that's a good beginning, you have to do something positive. Do something to please the person offended. The object, the objective is to perform a service so dedicated that it melts the heart of the offended party. That's a principle to remember. I mean, it doesn't take too long. Let your head go a little bit, or your mind go a little bit in the direction of what are some experiences, maybe even recently, where one devotee offended another devotee by their speech or their conduct. And then they later said they're sorry, but that you know very well the offended person is still, they may say, oh, think nothing of it, but it stays with them. And then the offender, the tendency to reproduce that same behavior is still there. So it's not just saying yes. It's like, here's a nice example. Um, the two drunkards that were trying to be saved by Lord Nityananda, the wild men, Jagai and Madhai, and wild, and that wasn't disturbing Lord Nityananda. He pleaded with them, please chant Hare Krishna, take the chanting of the holy name. And in a drunken state, Madhai picked up a clay pot and threw it and hit him in the head. And a series of other events happened. So once, as an example, once Lord Chaitanya instructed Madhai, fall at his feet and beg forgiveness. He did. Lord Nityananda gave forgiveness, gave his garland, said, whatever pious activities I may have rendered in my life, they're now yours. So Lord Chaitanya then said, very well, but now you have to render service to all those, not only Nityananda, to all those Vaishnavas who you've offended, and never do it again. So they built a Jaghai Madhai ghat and stood at the top of the ghat, and as people came to take their bath at that ghat, they begged forgiveness. So they did some service, and again with a deeply repentant heart. So then they became, cleared, not only of the reaction to those offenses, but the tendency to do again because of that service rendered. Redemption requires action, not just words. So there's Arjuna falling at the feet of Varas Yudhisthira. My dear brother, I know what you want. Please forgive me. Today, I will do what you want me to do. I will kill Karna. But Yudhisthira is wounded. And there's Yudhisthira embracing Arjuna, and his eyes filled with tears. And he said, dear brother, you don't need to ask for forgiveness. In fact, I am to blame for everything. Because of me, you're in this miserable condition. And in essence, everything you said about me is true. I'm not worthy to be a king. With that, he got up. And his plan was to go enter the forest and live a solitary life in the forest. So Krishna stopped him. Seeing Yudhisthira prepared to leave, Krishna did the unthinkable. He asked Yudhisthira for forgiveness, just to restore his self-esteem. Krishna said, "Don't pay attention to Arjuna. Yes, he said something foolish to you, but he didn't mean it. In fact, I am to blame for everything. I instructed him to tell you all these things. I ask you for forgiveness. I know that today Karna will meet his end. Do not doubt it." Krishna took the blame. In one sense, he's absolutely right. He didn't tell a lie. Arjuna only did what Krishna said. So he did what Krishna said. So he was following Dharma. So don't blame him, blame me. I'm the one that told him to do these things. Yudhisthira replied to Krishna, "Indeed, you saved us today. You saved both me and Arjuna. You helped us overcome this ocean of pain. Arjuna, Krishna, you're our protector." This is a very interesting painting. It shows Yudhisthira with two right arms. What to do? This story, Mahabharata lesson, shows that the principles of dharma, etiquette, and proper conduct are not rigid or mechanical. They exist to serve a higher purpose. Is everything okay? You sure? You need a chair? You sure? Okay. Through Krishna's example, he teaches that these principles are meant to uplift, inspire, and please others, and help them cross their ocean of pain and suffering. So bhakti should be more than words. It's like it takes then spiritual intelligence to guide our words. And then not only words, our actions, and be consistent with the principles of spiritual elevation. When we have a desire like that, Krishna will help us. Now, in this case, Krishna directly did it. He intervened in the middle of these two brothers. But the relationship of these two brothers is also, one can say correctly, orchestrated by Krishna to teach, some lesson of higher consciousness. There's a nice teaching that comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the ornament of a sadhu is proper respect and etiquette. Here's where that comes out. It comes in Antya Lila, the final section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that section is describing Sanatana Goswami visiting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. So let's do a little bit of the history. A little bit of the history is they, Rupa and Sanatan, became devotees of Lord Chaitanya under the period of time where they were in the service of the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. They were writing letters to Lord Chaitanya because they had privileges, and Lord Chaitanya received the letters. Knowing that they're his dear and, of course, eternal devotees, he came to Ramakelli and met them. And they, they snuck out from their palace life and came to meet with him and offered their obeisances to him and surrendered to him, and he accepted. But then he left, going instead back to Puri and then off to Vrindavan. Later, second visit, there was a rendezvous with Sanatana Goswami on his way to Vrindavan, and he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in between where his home was, or where his palace was, and Vrindavan. and they had discussions, and where Lord Chaitanya gave him various instructions. And then Lord Chaitanya said to Sanatana Goswami, go to Vrindavan, you make that your place of residence instead of Ramakeli, where you were before, and in course of time you can come and pay me a visit in Puri. At that time, Lord Chaitanya was on his way back from visiting Vrindavan, and he sent him to Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya went back to Puri. On his way back to Puri, Lord Chaitanya passed through a forest. You know the name, Jharikand Forest. And so when Sanatana Goswami, after living for some time in Vrindavan, wanted to again visit Lord Chaitanya, he traveled through Jharikand Forest. You know the story? No? Okay. I'll go slower. Jharikand Forest is in that at that period of time there were wild animals, wild elephants, wild tigers, wild boar, wild animals, and Lord Chaitanya fearlessly engaged them in chanting Hare Krishna. You ever hear an elephant chant Hare Krishna? There's a devotee that before he was a devotee, he was a radio announcer by profession, and then he became a devotee. So he made an entire narration. His name is Amala Bhakta Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple. He made a complete narration of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And when he narrates this story, he makes the sound of an elephant chanting Hare Krishna. It's really interesting. I can't duplicate because I'm not a qualified person like him. And then the boar and the deer and the deer are dancing. The deer are dancing with the tigers, and he transformed the wild creatures in the forest to Vaishnavas by his presence, by his transcendental presence. Then eventually he made his way back to Puri. Some time passed, and Sanatana Goswami found out where he went, place after place after place, because they're little villages, even in the forest. And he went from one village to the next village to the next village, and he followed the trace, the path of Lord Chaitanya through Jharikand Forest. Unfortunately, one place he drank water that was contaminated. And the result of his drinking the water that was contaminated, his body became infected with sores. And Prabhupada describes, it's right in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are two kinds of sores. Some are dry and some are wet. And a common term used these days is wet itches. So his body itched all over the place because there were sores. And they were not just sores, but they were this pussy, yucky, smelly stuff was coming out of his body. And that happened on his way to Puri. When he got to Puri, he felt terrible because he knew that Lord Chaitanya liked to embrace him. And when Lord Chaitanya embraced him, his body would smear with that smelly, yucky, pussy stuff. So he wanted to see Lord Chaitanya, but he wanted to stay away from Lord Chaitanya because he didn't want to offend him with this smelly, yucky body. So sometimes, knowing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would his morning program, one part of his morning program was he would go to the Jagannath temple, darshan of Jagannath deities, receive some prasad from Jagannath, from the pujaris, take that prasad from Jagannath to go visit Haridas Thakur, who would not come to the temple because he felt himself unfit to enter the temple from his birth in a Muslim family. And that was the practice at the time. Persons not born in a Hindu family were not allowed to enter the temple. They still have that policy, by the way. I've never been in the Jagannath temple. Anyway, lots of other people haven't. So he went to see Haridas, and they had nice association with one another, and he gave him prasad of Jagannath. That was this sustenance for Haridas Thakur for the duration of time that he remained in Jagannath Puri. And then after that exchange with Haridas Thakur, the next place he went to the Gopinath temple, Tota Gopinath. Tota means like a garden area. And he went in the garden area and saw the Gopinath deity, where Gadadhar Pandit was the pujari. And then after darshan of Gopinath, he sat in here Srimad Bhagavatam daily from Gadadhar Pandit. So knowing that that was his practice, Sanatana Goswami lived on the other side of town, and so to go the direct route is to pass by the Jagannath temple. But he felt that with my body in this condition, supposing my body rubs up against one of the Brahmins who are coming and going in the front of the temple, and I'll be a big offender. So instead, it was late morning, and he walked along the beach. That's what this little drawing is. And, you see flames because it was in the month of May, and in the month of May is the height of summer. And the sand in Jagannath Puri becomes so hot that you walk on the sand in Jagannath Puri and your feet blister. So he walked across along the way, along the path, because he didn't want to offend the Brahmanas. Here come the Brahmanas from the temple. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Sanatana Goswami, looked at his foot and said, you got all these blisters on your foot. Why did you walk along the shady street that leads from the Jagannath temple to me? So Sanatana Goswami said, I don't want to be an offender. Many priests walk along that street to serve Lord Jagannath. If they accidentally touched me, they would be defiled. I'm not a caste person. To protect them from offense, I chose the beach path. I don't feel any pain because I did what I couldn't I couldn't help doing, avoiding being the offender. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said this, guess what? He embraced him. And when he embraced him, the sores were cured, a miracle cure. And then he said, my dear Sanatan, this is the key. Although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, and although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is a characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnava etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. I'll say it again. That's the key. Maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. So if one transgresses etiquette, people will make fun of him, and thus he is vanquished both in this world and the next. By observing the etiquette, you have satisfied my mind. Who else but you could show this example? Look at your blistered feet. The blistered feet also healed, and the wet itches also healed, and Lord Chaitanya embraced him. Then there's some of the other people. It happens sometimes in Puri. The people that aren't allowed to enter become rebellious. So it sometimes happens. I mean, not all the time, but it sometimes happens. Devotees, big assembly of devotees come running at the Jagannath temple door. And then they run back and running and like they're going to storm the temple. And the pujaris are, what are we going to do with these people? They might storm the gates by force. So on the one side, some wishing and feeling themselves entitled kind of people, they want to enter the temple, and they want to do so by force, thinking I'm worthy. But that's the opposite mood of Lord Chaitanya's Haridas Thakur, and Sanatana Goswami. Humility has its place in our Vaishnava behavior. We gratefully accept. We don't demand. A person never thinks inside themselves, I'm a worthy one. Sanatana Goswami and Haridas stood outside, respecting the tradition, sanctified by time. Respecting the boundary pleases Krishna more than crossing it. No, both Haridas and Sanatana Goswami had their credential, and they could have done something other than what they did, but they set a standard for us to accept. And this is Prabhupada to all of us. All my disciples should become ladies and gentlemen. And what does that mean? So he explained. A gentleman is soft, well-mannered, educated, and humble. It is someone who knows how to behave and follow the standard. That Prabhupada drew followers from all types of backgrounds and all types of cultures and all types of languages and all types of things. And that's okay, but a diamond in the rough, and then you polish the diamond. They'll become polished diamonds, Prabhu. That's what our founder Acharya wanted, that we need to know what's the right behavior. This rule that existed in the Jagannath temple goes way, 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 way back to the beginning of creation. And in Satya Yuga, for example, animal sacrifice was not a violation of Dharma, but in Kali Yuga, it's forbidden. But why is that? Because people aren't qualified. The Brahmanas are not qualified to properly ignite the fire without a lighter by my mantra and sacrifice the animal in such a way the animal isn't eaten, but the animal is rejuvenated and it takes a younger animal birth. And they're just in the yagya itself. So it's not for animal eating. So in course of time, the message is there may be rules that shift a little bit, but respecting the laws doesn't change. There's Kali Yuga laws and there's Satya Yuga laws. Here's a nice example, and they're going to end abruptly. There's a boarding school somewhere, and they have a standard. For boarding school means children live at the school. So they have a system for the culture of education. So one of the rules is whenever you see someone, you greet them. Even if you met them, twice already, or 5 times already, or 10 times already, some respectful greeting. And the purpose of it is the culture of respect. It's just a small thing, but small things make up what our lives are made up of. The subtle power of greeting. Why do we greet? There's a behavior, politeness, but then, like this is Brahmananda, supposing you don't greet someone respectfully. What's the message? You don't exist. You ignore the person and don't acknowledge the person, and it's a spiritual violence. Greeting someone is the practice of validating their existence as a soul, ignoring them as an act of violence against the soul. Just like, coming before a deity. We offer obeisances before the deity. And failure to offer obeisances before the deity is disrespect, or it's a not proper understanding. So we're concluding. Respect is universal, but not uniform. Kapila Dev teaches, this we're going back to the Canto 3, Chapter 29, springboard, where all of this is coming from. Kapila Dev teaches that while we must respect all beings because they're connected to God, the degree of respect depends on their level of consciousness. So at the end of that chapter 29, Kapila Dev goes through different stages in the evolutionary cycle of life and how this and that. So there's, according to consciousness, not just body type, but according to consciousness, then one can understand the proper kind of respect to offer one in this consciousness, that consciousness, and that and the next consciousness. So there's a little diagram depicting this, the ladder of consciousness. Each category of beings has its own maryada, or discipline. Some of you know this. One of the names or descriptions of Ramachandra is he's known as Maryada Purushottama, because he is the topmost person in observing religious principle in Maryada. And that religious principle is respect according to one's position. So he, Ramachandra, set the standard. So that's one of the things, one of the reasons why people like Ramayana, and it's so wholesome for a society that becomes Ramayana oriented, is that at least they know what principles of Dharma are and how to conduct oneself according to principles of Dharma. It's by Ramchandra's example. Again and again and again and again. Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaches the same thing. In his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, it's one of his 100 books, Chaitanya Shikshamrita. And the diagram on the left shows the same thing. There's people in general. Here's the little list. People in general, people with a human body, and then there's people with a human body that are uncivilized, and some persons are civilized. The civilized means ones who follow varnashram. And then above those who are civilized, there's the king, and above the king, there's the sadhu, and above the sadhu, there's the sannyasi, and above the sannyasi is the one who has perfect realization. The ultimate highest is bhakti maryada, respect given to a devotee who embodies the principles of devotion. And so this is the end. The art of living in a society means understanding the position of everyone and showing them appropriate respect. I'm done. Because just for those of you that may not know, this series on respect was is going to be presented this coming weekend as part of a seminar on Vaishnav etiquette. It's an annual event in the Naperville Temple, and I've chosen respect as the topic I want to speak about for Vaishnav etiquette. And it's, there's a lot of messages, starting from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev's teachings, and then many other scriptural references. Here's a nice example. Prabhupada once was asked, should we bow down to a Mayavad sannyasi? This came up in Mayapur during a Mayapur festival, because sometimes there's Mayavadis here and there. Prabhupada wrote, if you see a Mayavadi sannyasi, immediately bow down to him. There'll be no harm. As you noted, we are following Lord Chaitanya's instructions that we should respect everyone according to their position, but this doesn't mean that we have to constantly communicate with them. Showing respect in an outward way with formally offering obeisances, that's appropriate. Even if a person is a Vaishnav without good qualities, we should respect them as a Vaishnava, but we should not associate with such a person intimately. This competence to differentiate or show how to respect depends on the position depending upon the position of a person is essential. So that's another part of what this seminar is going to consist of. And in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has a song, series of songs actually, on the third verse of Shikshastaka, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. You know the song. By administering a drop of your mercy, make this servant of yours infinitely more humble than a blade of grass, giving me the strength to bear all trials and troubles, free me from desires for personal honor. Song expressing once again the message of Shikshastaka 3. How to properly respect everyone comes by the grace of the spiritual master. The guru can give us this Shakti, not like they have to be standing over our shoulder and saying, now turn left or turn right, but principles. And one who receives mercy, then they're invested with some potency or some power, some Shakti, some capacity to make these proper discriminations. This way we can get rid of offenses to the holy name and experience happiness in the holy name. To be continued. A lot to prepare all this, yes? A lot what to speak of to follow it. But that's our lives. Our lives are in front of us. And, you three younger generation persons, you're very fortunate because at an early age, you're getting this nice teaching and instruction so that you can know how to conduct yourself, at least in principle. And you may not understand everything, that's okay. Continue to hear, and slowly you'll start to understand. That's how the process works, by repeated hearing, slowly, slowly, slowly. And same for us, whatever our age may be, slowly, slowly we can start to understand. It's really important stuff. It's the distance distinction between going to Krishna and living our life in such a way we're guaranteeing we're going to take another birth somewhere where we don't know. Close your eyes and imagine where you want to go, and maybe you'll go there, maybe you won't. We don't know. Purnar Janma Na. No more birth and death, no more involvement in material activity, so that you have to have replace the material activity with spiritual activity. So back to the theme, worshiping the deity without respecting other living entities. It's not pleasing to the it's not sufficiently pleasing to the personality of Godhead. We heard all these nice verses from chapter 29, Canto 3. Any discussion? I see Nandimukhi's hand. She always has her hand up first. But wait a minute. I want to see if because there's a lot of people in this room that haven't been with us for all these discussions. And I want to encourage all of you to express yourselves if you have something you'd like to say. If not, we'll call on Nandimukhi. Comments, questions?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So one of the slides, Prabhupada was mentioning that even we have to respect Vaishnavas without good qualities. My understanding that Vaishnava himself is beyond Brahmana and having good qualities. Just wondering like why here it's mentioned Vaishnava without good qualities.
Do you understand his question? Go ahead, just say. Yeah. Yes. In gradations. Yes. And why? Because so in their heart, there's the notion that they may not have good qualities. They may have bad speech and bad behavior. Those are not good. In details, there are some not good qualities. But in their heart, they have some idea to serve. So we can discriminate or discern the behaviors as different than the person. But here's a person that wants to serve Krishna. Any one of us. Are we perfect? Are we imperfect? But we're trying to be. So that respect goes to that soul trying to be, although they may not be endowed with all the good qualities. Now, Sanatana Goswami had one of those good qualities. He had many of them, but Lord Chaitanya was honoring you're the exemplar, the bearer of Vaishnava etiquette. But one of those is humility. Have you ever met a Vaishnava, a very learned Vaishnava that's a little proud? You ever met someone like that?
Sorry, Maharaj. My understanding was that Vaishnava means by default is having good
But
qualities.
Vaishnava means one who is a worshiper of Vishnu. Vaishnava is a worshiper of Vishnu. Now, the worshiper of Vishnu may or may not have all good qualities. One redeeming quality is their desire to be in service to the Supreme. Vishnu Bhakti. I want to serve Krishna. And supposing they have, a clumsy way of serving Krishna, but they want to serve Krishna. So that's respected. That Vishnu Bhakti within is to be respected. That's the point. Should we go back to that list? You want to drill on that a little bit?
If you have a time, please.
Sure. We have nothing but time. Okay, that's the list you're referring to. This is Chaitanya Shikshamrita. The author is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there's degrees of consciousness. So respect to humans, then those that humans, two-legged persons that are civilized, because some aren't, and some who are in the position of king, some who are learned pundits, some persons with good qualities, especially the Brahmana, Sannyasi, and Vaishnava. So let's go backwards. There may be some persons that are learned, but they're proud. And because of pride, they do prideful things. So that's not a good quality. But they're a Vaishnava, a learned Vaishnava. But then there are persons that have good qualities. Using that example, a diamond and a diamond in the rough. So inside the rough, there's a diamond. So you polish the outside, it becomes a sparkling diamond. There was a sparkling diamond inside all the time, but covered by mud or something or something. So the diamond is that which the place where respect goes, and then proportionately there may be higher grades of bhakti or of Vaishnavism. Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes. Up front.
Thank you, Gurmaraj. Thank you, Gurmaraj. My question is, if someone is offended and we're not even aware that what offense we have
Someone
committed.
is offending whom?
No, if someone is offended by us
Someone
and
is offended by us.
and we are not even aware of what offense we have committed towards them.
Okay.
In that situation, what can we do, Maharaj?
Oh, you ask them.
Not ready to open up.
Huh?
Not ready to open up.
You're not, or they're not.
They are not.
They're not. Then, take the humble position anyways. So we heard. We'll just repeat what we heard. You can offer apology. My dear Prabhu, I have, although you haven't said something specifically, I have a sense that it's something I may have said or done has offended you. They'll say, oh, no, 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 because they don't want to open up. No, no, no. So, although you're saying no, no, in any case, I want to apologize or say for whatever it is that I've said or done that you're saying no, no. I must have done something, and so because this my shortcoming, and so please forgive me, and I'm open for any instruction or advice you want to give on how to make some self improvement and do things in a better, more effective way. And then those are words, and then the other part is you demonstrate a willingness to do some service, some humble service that's going to be beneficial and appreciated by that person. And they don't have to say anything or do anything. That's a disposition of heart, and then you do something. And that's nice. And what if you come across somebody that has that kind of spirit, it's attractive. You know, they may not have done anything to offend you, and they may think that they have done something to offend you, and you're saying no, no, and they say, but they're genuinely and consistently coming forward. That's a Vaishnava coming forward with a humble service mood. And consistently. So that's attractive. It softens the heart, softens our heart by seeing such a person. We wish to be in that same mood ourselves because that's very attractive, and we're not there yet, kind of thing. So carry that mood, and if there is some hint, whatever that hint might be, something somebody has said or done, or they said to somebody else and not to you because they're not open to saying something directly to you. Whatever it is that gives you the idea that you have done something to offend them, those are things that you can do. That's your question.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Um, Initial part, Guru Maharaj, about form and essence.
Yeah.
Um, we discussed about Yudhishthira and Arjuna.
Yes.
In that, Arjuna was protecting his warrior when it was triggered for him. It
Yeah.
triggered.
Yeah.
And Yudhishthira, he was protecting his humility, like he was humiliated.
Yeah.
So this basically this is coming out of the protection of oneself
Yes.
all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Krishna, he intervened
Yes. You did.
when they were not able to resolve that protection.
Yes. 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 Exactly. You got it.
So my aspect is we understand Krishna will be there in our daily activities, but
That's the message.
let's see how
It's culture.
Yeah.
Culture means, how do we become cultured? Here, just like made comment about these children. They're little. They may not understand innuendos,
Yeah.
but they're hearing. And if the adults ideally are going to model, this is what it looks like. So they can see, they can hear, they can experience, and then so that's how
It's a culture.
from an acharya, an exemplary person, you see how they conduct themselves. And then you hear from scripture. You hear from scripture from qualified persons, that person or other qualified persons. So now through hearing, there's purification. And then with purification, then I can better understand that message that I just heard. So you're aligning ourselves with that higher trajectory.
Mm.
So unqualified persons can become qualified by acharyas, good examples, and proper hearing, and then trying to be in a mood of service according to the mood and the message that one hears.
Yeah. Thank you, Umar. If I may, for the second one, we were discussing about Sanatan Goswami in order to here in his case protecting the brahmanas
Yeah.
who will be walking towards the temple, and he got himself
Well,
hurt.
it's also he didn't want the responsibility of offending these people.
Yeah.
I will be offensive if my yucky body rubs up against their body. I'll be the offender, and then they'll have to go take bath because they bumped into me. And there's narrow lanes, and you can bump into people in narrow lanes.
Where I'm the question is, it is said in the scriptures, we in prayer, like one should take care of oneself, the self-care. At the same time, here in this case, Sanatan Goswami has showed an
Sacrifice.
elevated conscious where he is trying to protect the other Vaishnavas.
Yes. Yeah. So, yes, both. It's like this example of speech. Speech should be pleasing, beneficial, and not irritating. So pleasing is not irritating. Not irritating is pleasing. So I don't want to agitate the other party, and my sound vibration should be that kind of sound vibration that's elevating, beneficial, and not displeasing. So there are ways I can say, Prabhu, I really care about you, so I'm going to tell you you're a jerk. Blah 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 blah. It's for your benefit, Prabhu. I'm just speaking the truth because you're dear to me. Blah 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 blah. You know, that's not that's not proper speech. Now, how to say if someone needs to hear? That's delicate. Personally, I'm processing a couple of situations where there's a devotee who is worthy of respect. At the same time, they've made transgressions that they don't recognize,
Mm.
and how to convey that in the way that's going to be effective and respectful at the same time. It's not easy. Not easy. And these two different persons in different situations, very elevated, you know, this and that. But there's room for improvement. There's a fly in the soup.
Mm.
And how to tell, they won't hear it. What do you mean fly in the soup? What do you mean room for improvement? They're the ones that need to be improved. And let me tell you about what's wrong with them. Anyway, that's an over exaggeration. kind of, but not really, because they do these things, and they're in one sense respected because there's characteristics that are elevated within them, and they're Vaishnavas, so they're to be respected. But they're also how to navigate. So that I'm involved in discussions about both of these individuals and situations, and not easy, not easy. So one answer is with humility and with the right effort to speak pleasingly and beneficially, and it bounces. Then they're making some choices, and then there's consequences for those choices. I call it the school of hard knocks. They learn the hard way. Krishna will restrict and restrict and restrict, and they'll suffer because they don't want to be restricted. But it's Krishna, not somebody else doing it. And they can point fingers and say it's somebody else doing it, but there's consequences for offending or not having the proper respect for other living entities. And it's real stuff. It goes on today, not just, Mahabharata. It goes on. That different degrees, different persons, but the rules are rules. The laws, 100%. Laws of nature are the 100%. That's one of the messages. That remember that big brick or something falling from the sky. And gravity is a law of nature. There's no denying it. And then failure to offer respect where respect is due. It's a law of nature. There's consequences. Not wishing it upon the other person. It's just a law of nature. To try to educate people, follow the laws, be respectful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Paul.
I would really appreciate you elaborating a little more upon we were speaking of respectfulness to Vaishnavas
Yeah.
and etiquette to Vaishnavas.
Well, but
What?
not just you look at the picture that's on the screen here. Those
Yeah.
people at the bottom, they're not Vaishnavas.
Oh,
That's just people, four two-legged
Yeah.
animals.
so yes, outside of someone who never even heard the name Vishnu,
Yeah,
never heard the name Krishna,
right.
how do we?
There's a soul within. And then you appropriate to the person. I gave this example. It's a nice example. Prabhupada walking on the streets of London. Devotee, Prabhupada, you're not saying Hare Krishna, you're saying hello, good morning. How come you're not saying Hare Krishna, Prabhupada? Because when I say good morning, hello, they say good morning. And if I said Hare Krishna, they'll think this fellow is sectarian. But their devotional service has begun just by that cordial exchange. Good morning. It's so appropriate for their capacity, for their position. So they have, etc. Appropriate. So then, how do you yeah, be personable with everybody, and then appropriate for that person? There's some exchange appropriate for the person.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay, Nandimuki. I'm not discriminating against you. I just want other people to speak up. You get the idea.
Yes,
And
Hare
it worked,
Krishna.
at least for a little bit.
I think it's a very artistic way to express the essence of form, the principle of formality versus essence.
Yeah, that's one way. There's many ways.
Hare Krishna. I think three things I want to talk about. The first is you gave the example of Brahmananda, who made a comment that he didn't feel like bow down, and Srila Prabhupada said, even you don't feel like it, still do it.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is relatable to me a lot. Because the background and the culture, the education where I'm come from is like that. I'm trained not to bow down to anything.
Oh.
So before I came to the U.S., I never bowed down to anything, and the first ever object I bow down to is the deities in the DC temple. And the first ever person I ever bow down to is, well, I'll tell you at later time.
Okay.
But I need to acknowledge that I do feel there are some everlasting effects by that gesture, although there are certain awkwardness that I felt initially. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is that when you were explaining the principle of form versus essence, it reminds me of two things. One is the Vaidhi Bhakti versus Raganuga Bhakti.
Yeah.
And the other is Srila Prabhupada's expression, the philosophy versus religion. Like philosophy without religion is mental speculation, and religion without philosophy is sentiment. I think it has that interesting similarities in between.
Yes, exactly.
And my personal view is that the form, or you can say formality, is really a way to express essence.
Yeah.
And so without that formality, without that form, the essence also don't have a proper venue to come out. And that's the second thing. And the last thing is the example you gave, which Kishore Prabhu also talk about, the Mahabharata story of Arjuna's conflict with Yudhishthira. I think I really appreciate that you put that example in the presentation and give a sufficient amount of time, space to that. I think because it's just express the delicacy and the dynamic of that form versus essence a lot. I from Krishna's action, I think there are two things that I find remarkable. One is the this layers and hierarchies of forms, of laws, of rules, and you can bypass another rule by this rule and jump over to another rule from the original rule that you were starting with. And I think it requires a lot of intelligence and thoughts in that. I think perhaps only Krishna could master that. And just like last Wednesday, you talk about the Kaliya serpent, Damana Lila, Kaliya Damana Lila. It's just like he is dancing on the hood of the Kaliya, and now he is dancing on these layers of rules to save his two dear devotees. And the other remarkable thing that I feel is Krishna explained the highest dharma is not harm other living entity. In one of the slides, I think you
Yes.
have that shown.
Yes.
And I am a little bit surprised in the beginning because I'm thinking about the highest dharma perhaps is Sanatana Dharma, the bhakti principle. And Krishna is given another term here, not harm, which I think is perhaps ahimsa, not harming. And but I feel like I felt like later than I think he is putting things in context in that particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel that he actually demonstrated bhakti is the highest dharma because Arjuna followed his instruction, and that is a devotional service. And Yudhishthira also respect his instruction in the end. Yeah, that's all I want to share. Thank you.
Several things in response. One is the fact that Prabhupada said to Brahmananda what he said was because Brahmananda was fit to receive what he said. Meaning there were times and circumstances where Prabhupada wouldn't say anything because persons weren't advanced enough or purified enough to say. So he just, remained silent. And then when the time came, he said, according to the individual and the circumstance. But just commenting that that statement isn't like a universal statement. With buy down anyways. Is an instruction meant for someone who has the capacity to do like that. And he added, in time you'll understand. But he's saying that to someone who is already, an elevated person by dint of attachment to Prabhupada and the purity that comes from being attached to a pure person. Then the door is open for him to make such statements. We shouldn't imitate, but follow but the nice example, because the picture of how Prabhupada dealt with things was grew over time with certain people and less so with other people because they had greater or lesser capacity to receive. And the second is this whole narration, how Krishna dealt with Arjuna and Yudhisthira. There's many layers. It's not, you can look at it in this way, and then there's layers and layers and layers of other ways to analyze. Like one Prem Kishore identified one interesting layer. Then there's others and others and others. So rather than going into all those others, because you spent a whole class just discussing that particular pastime and some of the layers. But so there's the overall, there's the form and substance. We can say, here's one. We can say both out of context of that dynamic, both Yudhisthira and Arjuna were at the essence stage. And somehow the form stage got broken. And it made for a mess. And Krishna put it back into form because the essence was there. So it didn't take too much to have Yudhisthira stop, running away. He's the king. He has to lead. The kings lead the followers. In Arjuna, you take your life, and who's going to protect the Pandavas? Who's going to lead the armies? to victory. And and my purpose of the demoniac king should be removed from the face of the earth. That's one of my purposes in coming. So you can't take your life. You have to do that. Anyway, there's many other things, many layers. There was a need to kill Karna because he was wicked and powerful, wicked and powerful as it is as a demon. Hiranyakashipu, wicked and powerful. Kill the wicked and powerful. That's what Yudhishthira wanted because that's what a king wants. Persons, you put him in jail or, confine a wicked yet powerful person, then you restrain them. And some persons can't be restrained, then it's capital punishment. So anyway, so it's layers and layers and layers. That's the second comment. Anybody else? Okay. Time to end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.